I know most of us at some point tried our life to learn computer programming. And before you start, so you begin with many big questions like say, how am I going to start? Where from I start? And what are the tutorials are available in the market? And what I should follow? Sometimes we started those tutorials, but it ended up with too technicals and too complicated that you could not continue and you gave up. So keeping these things in my mind, so I thought that I'll make kind of basic tutorial for learning programming language for the beginners who actually does not have any programming skill or even any technical knowledge, so that they can also learn computer programming. Okay, let's get started. So introduction to computer programming, lesson 1. Before I go in detail with programming and other things, so I like to start with the very basics, with the definition of the programming. So if you go and search in the Google or any other search engine, so for what does it mean by computer programming, you will see that, and say one definition will comes up, so that says that programming language is nothing but a set of instructions. So for the beginners and who actually doesn't have that technical background, so for them this definition is kind of abstract, right? So because they are looping through, okay, what does it mean by the instructions, and how do we formalize that, how do we compile that to make the programming? So this is kind of a little bit complicated to understand for them. So to make a better understanding of this definition of the programming, so I would like to actually play a game. So you can see on the screen we have a blind man on the one side, and the other side we have a door. So our goal is to take this blind man into the door so that he can go out. So how we can do that? So as you can see, this is a blind man, so you need to keep your mind like say the blind man actually doesn't have any knowledge about the environment. So we have to give them the complete and specific instruction to him. So let's see how we can start. Say initially we can say this blind man, okay, you go forward. As you can see from the picture, we can ask him, okay, start, go forward. So then with this instruction, what will happen? So this blind man start moving forward. So let's see what he is doing. And you can see that, so after 3 steps, he actually bumped himself and he cannot he cannot move forward. So what happened? So you can see that after these 3 steps, he actually doesn't have any room to go. So what was the problem with your instructions? So if we can go back a little bit again and think about what was that instruction. So instruction was move forward. And with the instructions, so he ended up hitting with the wall. So what was the problem with these instructions? So naturally we can say, we can understand that the instruction might have some issue, some problem. So what was that? So easily we can say that the instruction was not complete and it is little bit ambiguous. And what is that? So to define that, I can say that the instruction was not specific. So what do you mean by the specific? So let's see what was the first question. What is the first instruction for that blind man? The instruction was move forward. And how we can make this instruction a specific instruction? So if we say these things, say move 3 steps forward, instead of saying move forward. So what will happen in this case? So that means the blind man will take 3 steps and then stop. So he's not going to move forward because he has received the instruction to take only 3 steps. So that's why this time he's not going to bump the wall. So after taking 3 steps, he's going to stand there. So this is the specific and complete instruction. So in this instruction, there is no ambiguity. And the second instruction, what you're going to do, you're going to tell the blind man turn right. So he will take turn right and he will stop there because the instruction was clear just to turn right. Then the third instruction, you're going to tell him, okay, move 5 steps forward. So after taking 5 steps forward, he going to stop again. And then further, you're going to take further instruction, you're going to tell him, okay, turn left. And then so on. And if you can give this specific and complete instruction without any ambiguity, so the blind man is going to reach safely to the door. So what we have seen in there, so that means that the sets of instruction is an instruction for doing something, and the most important things of this instruction is that it has to be specific, complete, and no ambiguity. Yeah, so while I'm saying these things, so one thing also comes into this topic, so that is called, like say, making a communication between two actors. So what are the actors here? Actors is one is yourself, who is actually generating the instruction. Another actor is the blind man, who is actually taking the instruction. So what is happening here? So we are trying to build a communication channel between two actors. So that means in the programming area, so the communication is one of the important factor here. So let's go in detail little bit into the communication. The communication can be made in a different way. The first thing we see, the human-to-human communication. Let's go to the second one. Second one is the human-to-machine communication. So that is what we are actually trying to do right now by doing some computer programming so that we can make a communication with the human-to-machine. Another way communication can be also achieved, like say machine can also do a communication to human. And the last one is the machine-to-machine communication. That means machine and machine also can make a communication between them. So in summary, so the communication we got is a human-to-human communication, human-to-machine communication, machine-to-human communication, and machine-to-machine communication. Okay, so this is kind of a communication, but we would like to go a little bit further in depth of the communication. So how actually we do the communication? So let's see what are the options we do have. So the oral communication, that means you say something, you speak something to make a communication with the other actors. And the visual communication, so that means you draw something or you present something to express your thought and feelings, naturally to express your instructions. So that is the visual communication. And then text communication, that means you write something. So you can send email, you can send SMS, or you can chat. So this is how you can also make a communication with other actors. And the last one is the sign communication. That means you can combine your fingers or your position of hands to make something readable by others. So that is the sign communication. Another thing comes for this communication. So what we need actually to make a successful communication. So let's see what are the options we have. So like say you can talk. Yeah, you can talk to make a communication, but it's not the basic one. It's like you can have a speaker which produces some sound. With this sound you can also make a communication. Yes, this is a means of communication, not the basic one. Let's move forward. Let's see what are the other options we do have. So the voice communication, yeah, you can use a voice to make a communication, but still it is not the basic one. You can also the mouth to make a communication or produce some sound to make a communication. Yeah, it is also a means of communication, but not the basic ones. Then what is the basic one to make a successful communication? I know what you are thinking. So this is what I'm going to reveal it right now. So it's a language. So the language is the most basic things is required to make a successful communication. So let's see what are the languages available for our communication. So if you want to make a communication between human to human, so what are the languages we have? We have English, we have French, we have Bangla, we have many other languages in the world. So if you want to make a communication with the machine, yes, sure, we need a language, right? So let's see what are the languages available for making a communication between human to machine. So Pascal, C++, Visual Basic, C#, JavaScript, and many more. You can see many other languages around the world. So then another thing comes for the successful communication. How do we perform the communication? How do we do it? So like say for human to human communication, we speak each other, we talk each other, or we produce some hand signal to express ourselves, to make a successful communication between human to human, and many other ways we can also do that. So in case of human to machine communication, what are the options we have? So we can use keyboard, we can use mouse, and we can also use some kind of voice command. So there are some new device which actually are some new machines which can actually interact with your voice. So this is kind of a communications idea. So I would like to take it another things, the machine to human communication, like say machine is also like to do some communication. So how he can perform the communication. So actually computer shows something on the screen that is in the monitor, and also it might produce some sound, right? So this is how a machine also can communicate with the human. So the communication things, I would like to take it a little bit further. So I like to give an example. Like say you met with your childhood friends after a long time. So then you hang out, you went to the restaurant and you talk. So then after you finish your hangout, so then you are going to say bye to your friends. So then naturally what you're going to do, you're going to exchange your information. Like say you're going to take your friend's address, phone numbers, and also you're going to give to him, right? So this is how you're going to do that. So when you're doing that, so how are you going to keep this information so that you never lose it, right? So what can be done? So it is very simple, right? You know it, everything. It's like say you can write in a paper or you can memorize it, right? So what to do if the same things you do with a machine, like say you're going to give some information to the machine. So how machine is gonna act with that? So what it's gonna do? Is that any presentation, the machine doesn't have any presentation of the paper, that the machine can write something? And is there any memories for the computer that he can remember it? So let's see what are the options we have, okay? So in the human to human communication, we see that the means of storing something was a paper, right? So for the machine, we see it's called hard disk drive. In a short form, it's called HDD. That means if you give something to the machine, so machine can keep it, or machine can write it into one of his device that is called hard disk drive. And in case of memories, how can he memorize that, right? So the computer does have something called random access memory, which is called RAM. So computer can remember also something like that. So we'll move into another topic. So before that, I would like to give another example to actually visualize that. So what is that? So you are in a coffee shop and you ordered for a cup of coffee. The retailer is ready to give you the cup. How are you going to get it? So means like say you are standing in front of the retailer and retailer is standing with a cup of coffee, and how are you going to get it? Very simple, right? So it's kind of dumb question. But yeah, so I know that what you're going to do, what you're going to say. So yeah, surely you're going to grab it by your hand, right? So what the things come here, like say if somebody is giving you something and there is a question comes, like say you need to grab it, or you might need a place or a room or a space where you can keep it. right? So the question comes, if somebody gives you something, you need to grab it, or you want to put it in a place, or you need a room or a space to keep it. In this our example, so what happens? You got a cup of coffee and you hold it by your hand, right? If same kind of things happens to the computer, like you are trying to give something to the computer, right? And as we have a something, the human has a means to hold it, that is, he can hold it by hand. But how about the computer? How the computer is going to hold it? But for sure, he has some means to hold it, right? Okay. So the analogy is kind of, for human, it is a hand, and for a machine, what is that? So for machine, it is called variable. How do you visualize that? In case of human, it was a cup of a coffee, but in case of a machine, it was information. So the analogy is human and machine is a cup and information. To hold this cup, human needs a hand. To hold this information, machine needs, yeah, it is a variable. That means, very simple, we can say, if you want to give some information to a machine, then machine should have something, or already it has something which is called variable, while a machine can hold the information. So if you imagine a little bit, like say you have some books, you want to put it in an organized way, or you want to store it. So you might buy a bookshelf, then where you can put one by one in your books, right? So some kind of things, like say when you are giving information to the computer, so he might have hundreds of variables, so which actually where you can actually store the information. So you can say this is kind of small boxes inside the computer. So you can see that it can be arranged in many ways. So you can see the yellow squares are representing the box, and we have the information. Here is a cup, so you can store the cup into different boxes. So that means that in general, and if I summarize that, so that means if you want to give some information to the computer, you need to have a variable. So that is the end of this tutorial, I mean the lesson 1. So in this next lesson, I'll tell more detail about the variables and other stuff for the computer programming. Thank you for watching.